It's been reported that Marvel are going to be forced to abandon the Avengers Doomsday release. So I don't know how credible this is, how reliable these guys are. So I would obviously recommend taking this with a pinch of salt, because I can't speak to the reliability of this report, but we're gonna go with it either way. So, Marvel Studios is reportedly facing a major complication with the release of Avengers Doomsday. While the long-awaited film is slated to hit theatres in December, recent reports suggest Disney may need to rethink its release plan due to Dune Part 3, which is scheduled for a release this year. By the time Avengers Doomsday hits theatres, it will have been over 7 years since we last saw a major Avengers team-up on the big screen. Of course, plenty has changed for the MCU in that time. Endgame saw RDJ, Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans exit as Tony Stark, Iron Man, Natasha Romanoff and Steve Rogers. We're now well out of the Infinity Saga and in the midst of the Multiverse Saga, which some fans feel lacks the cohesion and narrative drive of its predecessor. Absolutely. No doubt. I mean, you can't tell me that the MCU fan base is as invested now compared to 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Amid increasing superhero fatigue, some have also criticised the sheer mass of Marvel releases since Endgame. While the studio has since slowed down and refocused on quality over quantity, there was a point where we were receiving multiple Disney Plus projects alongside a handful of theatrical releases each year. Yeah. That's definitely the case. I mean, I think everyone agrees Marvel's gone down in recent years. I don't know if right now they're focusing on quality over quantity, though. I don't know if that can be said about the current MCU. I think it's probably the opposite. Well, there was a time when we were getting quality and quantity, but you know that's a long time ago now. Things are very different in 2026 for Marvel and the MCU. That's why some have criticised Avengers Doomsday for its seemingly obvious attempts to recapture classic Marvel magic. Downey Jr. is back on the scene, although as Doctor Doom, not Tony Stark, and Chris Evans is also set to return as Steve Rogers. The film is also set to welcome several iconic heroes from older Marvel projects, such as 20th Century Fox's X-Men universe, while Endgame directors Anthony and Joe Russo are back to steer the ship toward, hopefully, box office success. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think there's a strong chance that this ends up being like the most expensive movie ever. I mean, the fact that The Rise of Skywalker cost $600 million when it really didn't need to is telling. Because the one thing I'll say is, think of the scope of this film, think of the scale of this film, and think of how many people they're bringing in cast-wise. I mean, none of these guys are cheap. They're bringing in RDJ, they're bringing in Chris Evans, they're bringing in Chris Hemsworth, they're bringing in Scarlett Johansson, they're bringing in Hugh Jackman, reportedly, they're bringing in Ryan Reynolds, reportedly, Patrick Stewart playing Professor X. That's not even everybody. I've just listed off a few names there. You know, this is a big cast, and that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money going to the cast alone. I mean, everyone I just named are insanely expensive. Everybody I just named are all need to be paid like minimum 5 million. Minimum 5 million. Everyone I just named. And I just named like a dozen people. All of them need to be paid minimum 5 million, and that's not everybody. So it's going to end up being a very expensive film. But my point is yes, it needs to be a box office success, but actually it needs to be a huge box office success by sort of general standards. But I mean, in this particular case, if this film makes 1.5 billion, that will probably mean that it wouldn't have made much money. If this film makes 1.5 million at the box office, I think this is easily going to end up being a $500-600 million movie, budget-wise, easily. So if it makes 1.5 billion, which generally speaking is a lot of money, but for Doomsday, if it makes 1.5 billion, it hasn't made that much money. That's the thing. That is the crazy thing about it. Amid these criticisms, recent reports suggest Avengers Doomsday may face issues with its release date due to another highly anticipated project, Dune Part 3. According to Empire City, Dune 3, which is due for release on the same day as Doomsday, has an exclusive IMAX release window of 3 weeks. As a result, unless plans change, Avengers Doomsday would not receive an IMAX release until at least January 8th, 2027. Earlier reports told a different story. An October 2025 IMAX slate placed Doomsday among a group of 2026 releases expected to screen in the format alongside Dune Part 3, though no details were provided about priority access or exclusivity. Is the success of Avengers Doomsday inevitable? Even with questions swirling around the film, the appetite for a major Marvel team-up remains unmistakable. Marvel Studios has long been a fixture of IMAX screens, and every Avengers film has debuted in the format, making Doomsday's expected inclusion feel almost assumed. Premium alternatives such as Dolby Cinema may soften the blow for some audiences, but the real story is the scale of interest still surrounding the project. Any absence from IMAX at launch is unlikely to meaningfully dent its box office prospects. Doomsday is Marvel's first true event film in years, with its 4 trailers which focused on Steve Rogers, Thor, the X-Men and the Wakandans, and the Fantastic Four, surpassing 1 billion views in a single month, even after leaks circulated online. Coupled with the Avengers franchise's $7.7 billion global box office track record, the level of hype suggests that, controversy aside, demand for blockbuster Marvel crossovers remains firmly intact.